Kyle's a great friend of mine. We met when he first moved to Atlanta, and he's taught me so many things over the years, and we've just built a really incredible friendship. And the truth is, every time I see someone do an interview with him, my wife and I we were talking about it backstage, we get so mad because we're always like, they didn't ask him the things that we feel like he should be sharing about. And so I told him that one time, I'm like, someday I gotta interview you with our community. And so hopefully we're gonna pull out some things that I've learned, and I think everyone can learn from Kyle. Not only does he have all those stats and all that kind of stuff, but he's an incredible person, an incredible friend, an incredible dad and husband, and just thankful for the friendship. So let's get ready to do it. Okay, so thinking about the three-point world that you live in, the NBA world that you live in, there's a YouTube video of when you got 11 points in, I think it was like 46 seconds or something. It was some insanely short amount of time. You hit 4 shots. There's also a rumor that in practice, there's this stat that you have some record, something like 86 threes you made in a row in practice one time at a Hawks practice. Anyway, you don't ever talk about those stats, but some of us have heard of these things. And I wanted to start by just talking about what happens in those moments for you. Some people call it like a flow. Some people, if you're playing a video game, I guess it's you're on fire, but you're hot, right? So, but in your mind, in real life, what happens with you in those moments?
It's the zone that we all want to be in. Like, there's been a lot of talk. Is this flow? Is this zone real? Is this a real thing? And it certainly feels that way. I want to believe in it, right? And I've felt times where you feel like, you feel like you can't miss, or you feel like, you're seeing things before they happen. Really, I just feel like there's clarity. Like I know that if I do this certain thing, the ball is going to go in the basket. All I need is for your hands to go down. I just need space to shoot it. And it's just really fun space to be in, right? I think, it's as someone, if you're trying to be, like, if you want to be the best of the best, which is like the goal, like, it's like, how do we have that flow, that zone happen more frequently? Like, how do we make that happen, not just like every once in a while? And to me, the more variables you can take out, the more things that have to line up, the less things that have to line up, the more often you find that zone, that flow. But that is the goal, to be in the zone, to be in the flow.
All right, so we're going to talk about what it means to be a pro. We're going to talk about all these different things. In your industry that you've been in for so long, younger and younger talent is getting called upon earlier and earlier, right? So there's literally teenagers that are getting these massive contracts. They're getting drafted. Just last week or 2 weeks ago, these 19-year-old kids are getting drafted, And in the midst of that, I know you've gotten to interact with a lot of this young talent. They have incredible talent, but they're really probably not pros yet, because they're stepping into this position. They have all this potential. What do you think the difference is between seeing someone's talent, seeing the potential of someone, and then them really stepping into that role?
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very possible to be in the NBA and not be a pro, right? What I would consider to be a pro. Like, you're at that level, but to be a pro's pro is kind of the lingo that coaches would talk about, right? Someone who you've done all the things. I think when you're really trying to be a pro, there's this intimate relationship that you have with your craft that can only be learned over time and reps, right? But, in the world of what's next and, this is this battle that we all fight in every industry, I think, of these young people coming to take all of our jobs. And I think a good moment for me was just, because when you're in the NBA, there's a draft every year. And so there's 60 players who are drafted every single year. To take 60, they don't make more jobs. 60 people lose their job at least every year, right? The first 4 years I was in the NBA, my team drafted someone at my position. I'm like, what you just got me, right? But this is the reality. It's like there's this fear that someone's trying to come and take your spot. Someone's trying to come take your job. And there was a big moment for me where I was just like, let me be confident in the work that I put in. There is absolute space and need for veterans, for elders, right? Like, to let the young guys be the young guys. Let them have all the potential. Let's not let me fear about them taking my spot. I will earn my spot, right? And like, the moment that happened is, I'd like to use the term elder. Like, you become an elder in the NBA. And then it's like, when the game's on the line, you're in the fourth quarter, the coach isn't going to go to the young guy with potential. He's still going to go to you, right? But I got to earn that spot. I'm going to put in my time. But then I'm also going to be this person who's pouring into the next generation, because that's good, and that feels good. And the more I leaned into that, it's wild, like, the better my years were. Like, my better years were in the back half, when I had when I wasn't trying to protect and like shield off the young guys. So I think it's, there certainly is, especially people who are in charge, you're trying to find someone who's younger, someone maybe who's cheaper, someone who can manage it a little bit better. But there's such a place for like the elders. Like, we're needed, but we have to be willing to evolve, be willing to keep on working, to not feel to not feel attacked, right? And if we do that, there is this beautiful place for us elder people in the world, right? Like, come on.
And so you talked about the pros. So to you, when you think about what is a pro, what would you say to that?
What is a pro? To me, when I started to see basketball in mind, body, and spirit, right? And I learned to feel this game and feel shooting on a different way. I became a pro. I've loved basketball since I was 3. That didn't make me a pro. It's interesting now, like, with all the new technology and data, like, we're able to teach young people lessons that we learned through our grind years. Like, there's just more, like, we can give people more stuff now. But that doesn't make you a pro. You gotta know how to use it. And you have to have years where you endured. Like, you felt it, you felt the good, you felt the hard, and you kept on pushing through. All the while, like trying to continue to get better. Like, for me, like, in shooting, like, I'm kind of going off track a little bit, but like, I had to find, on a game day, I had to find my shot 4 times, and I found it in 4 completely different ways. I had to find, I never shot for makes, I shot for feel, right? So the first time I would shoot with the heavy ball. So I can shoot a regular basketball however I want, but with a heavy ball that weighs 3 to 5 pounds, like, if I don't shoot it perfectly, I feel it go the wrong way. My elbow starts to hurt. Right? I have to use my lower body to really engage everything to get the ball to the hoop. And I'll spend 15 minutes before the first practice just doing that. Like, I don't care if the ball goes in or not. I want it to feel right. Like, it has to feel perfect. And I never go outside of 3 feet, right? Then I'll do my shoot around. And after shoot around, I have another routine that I do, which is actually threes, right? Which is what I shoot. And I had to make so many shots at so many spots, but it was only three shots at 7 spots, and then 3 shots on these kind of actions that I would run a lot in games. And I would do it until it was perfect, right? I wouldn't do a ton of reps. I would probably only shoot 50 reps, but I had to do it perfect. It had to feel perfect, right? And then I would do it again before the game, and I'd get there 2 hours early, and I would shoot by myself, heavy ball, and then I had a routine of probably about 100 shots. And I didn't care about the number of shots so much. I had to feel it perfect. And then you go out before the game and you do it again, right? And I had a routine that I would do when the crowd's watching, whatever. And I'm trying to find my happy thought is what I would go into. Where, like, if I do this, I've done all this work all day long. I feel my toes, and I feel like my psoas, and I feel all these muscles that are like the deep inside muscles, and they're fully engaged. I am powerful in this shot. I'm finding my happy thought, is what I call it before the game. There's 4 different times that I will experience shooting that's not just try to make 5 out of 7 or 8 out of 10 or whatever my number is. Like, I'm trying to experience shooting every single day for 17 years. Like, that's, like, I love this stuff, right? But, like, to me, like, it's not just about the results that you get or the level that you get to. It's your intimate knowledge of your craft. And it's like every day, even though as I'm tinkering, I'm trying to make my shot better. Not make it go in. I'm trying to find more power. I'm trying to find more leverage. I'm trying to find better accuracy. I'm trying to find better alignment. And I'm lost in this process 4 times every single day. Not 4 hours, but like 15, 20 minutes, 4 times, trying to perfect my craft.
Okay, which you started getting into your planning mode a little bit. And this is something I want you to share a little bit about. He shared this with me, but he doesn't talk about this a lot, but it shaped me. And I have this theory, because I learned this from you, that everyone can become a pro in whatever industry that you currently are in. But most of us don't really think like a pro. We think about how to get the job done in some way. So Kyle, I want you to explain to people what you do for, really it starts about 24 hours before a game time, right? Or roughly in there. Walk us through your preparation for a game.
Well, it starts the day before, right? So the day before a game, and we play 82 games in a season, plus 8 preseason games, plus depending on how good you are, how many playoff games you have. So you play almost 100 games a year. But my process is the day before every game is I have to lift legs. Like I do an intense lower body lift, and I rotate going single leg day, which would be like more lunges, and a double leg day, which would be like more deadlift. So it's like a 30 to 45 minute lift where I'm like attacking the weights. Like I'm really trying to be aggressive, because that gives me my best pop the next day in the game. It's like almost the most important thing I do is the day before when I do this lift. But if I do that lift and I don't do soft tissue work, like massage, I feel sore the next day, right? My muscles are sore. So I have to do an hour-long soft tissue work. And it's not like the rub your shoulders, like it's like in your glute, like you're like this for an hour, right? But I would do it every single day, or for an hour before every single game, right? Then I would go to sleep at night. So at bed, I had to sleep exactly 7 hours and 45 minutes, because if I slept more than 7 hours and 45 minutes, I had a hard time doing a good pregame nap. But if I slept less than 7 hours and 45 minutes, I didn't have enough energy to do my pre-morning workout the next day, right? So I would sleep as absolutely close to 7 hours and 45 minutes as possible. I would get up, and I try to get up with my kids. So it's just like all the trying to program all, because I'm my dad. I got 3 kids, so I got to be a dad too, not just a full-time basketball player, right? So I try to get up with them. I can only have 1 cup of coffee on a game day, because I have 2 cups of coffee on a game day, then I can't take my good nap, which I really, 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 really care about. So 1 cup of coffee. If on non-game day, I'll have 2 cups of coffee. On game day, I have 1 cup of coffee. And then as I drive to the game, is like or to the practice, is like my meditative time, right? And you got to stay safe on the road and all that. But like this is where I'm like trying to plan out my day. Like all the things that I need to do to be right. I'm starting to think about the opponent that night, my matchup, who I'm going to be guarding, what he likes to do, what his tendencies are. I want these to be running in my head throughout the day, so that in the game, I'm naturally reading them, not have to think about it again, because I've already thought about this for several hours. So I do that. I go into the practice facility. I have 15 exercises that I would do every single day. So it's not just like, working on your core. It's like I'm trying to really visualize the muscles that I'm trying to activate and be right. So it's like really intentional. So I do that. Then I go into that heavy ball work that I talked about. I do the shoot around after that, which I kind of care about, not really. It's whatever the coach wants you to do. I kind of make it through it. Then I do my second shooting workout, and then I do my weight room again, and then I go into the cold tub. So there's a lot of ice involved in the NBA. Scotty Parker's over here. He knows this really well. But you ice tub a lot in ice bags. So I will either sit in a cold tub or do ice bags 3 times on every single game day. So the first time I would do it is in that, and I do that in a cold tub. And in Milwaukee, we had like a little path. So I would walk through the path. There's like a little loop in this cold tub, and it's like, it's 38 degrees. It's really effing cold, right? But you do it, and I hate my belly button getting it. So I'm trying to like walk on my tiptoes, which I also like walking on my tiptoes, because part of my running patterns, I get really heel heavy. And so I have to really concentrate on being the balls of my feet. So I walk doing toe raises in the cold tub for 3 laps, and then I submerge for 30 seconds underwater. And then I go up, I go in the hot tub for 1 minute, and I come back in, I do 3 laps again. I do this 3 times, so back and forth, hot, cold, contrast, which helps for your blood flow, which helps you give you better energy in your legs at night, right? So I do that. Then I have my egg and bean and avocado burrito every single time after that. I drive home. I hang with my kids for an hour. And then I have to take my nap at a certain time every day because I want to take a 90-minute nap and I want to wake up at a certain time. So I try to, about 20 minutes of reading puts me to sleep at this point. So I find a book that has nothing to do with anything that I care about, just helps me go to sleep. And I read this book for 20 minutes. I fall asleep in a hyperbaric chamber, which is like good for your brain and everything, right? So we bought this chamber. It's a long story. We got this chamber, so I do that. I wake up exactly 3 hours before I have to be on the court for the game. So I wake up and I go right into my routine. So I wake up, I go into my, I get tea, I go up, I shower, I do a cold shower again, because you can start with hot and you go with cold, so it's good for your blood flow and makes you feel fresh. So I do cold, and then I drive to the game with my tea, because not coffee, because coffee I can't go to sleep at night, so I do tea to the arena, and then I have a whole hour routine of what I do before the game, which involves film and breakdown of my opponent, and I go back into my shooting routine.
I think that's enough. Kyle is a pro. Did you experience what just happened there? And it was funny, I remember the first time every time I ask him about it, I learn new things about it. But for him, he's built this way that makes him operate the way that he does to be on at game time, right? Like you build this whole strategy. And I remember the first time he told me this, I was like, what would it look like for me to be a professional nonprofit leader? Like how would I be operating differently today if I was thinking the way that he thinks in my craft? Like, that doesn't matter. Everyone in the room is probably doing different things, different work. What would that look like for you to operate in the extreme way that he does for optimal performance? And did I miss anything in that?
No, I mean, I think if you want to be the best of the best, it's really hard. It's hard. Like, you got to work, right? And it's like, it's up to each of us, like, what you want out of your craft or what you do. But, like, I think what I love about all these things, like the process, it's not like a checklist to me. It's like, it's this intimate relationship that I have with my craft that I love. So it's not duty to me. It's not checklist. It's like while I'm doing it, like while I'm shooting with this heavy ball, like I'm trying to find like this much more power out of my right index finger. You know what I mean? Like it's like, the challenge is turning it off when you go home, right? When you got a family and all these things, because there's a beauty to balance in life. I believe in that, and I believe in having an off day. Like we can get into that later. Like all the rest is important, right? But like there's something. It's really hard to be the best at what you do, and I think we talked about younger and older players earlier. I think a lot of the frustration that a lot of the older generation feels is like we don't feel like the younger generation gets that. And we're like, we've worked so hard. How do you not feel this, right?
Well, you alluded to it, but talk about the rest mentality, not being a 10 all the time.
So I've done a couple different brain training things over the years. The first one I did, which you wore this net on your head and it kind of tracked your brain for a day. And the feedback that I got back was that the entire day, on a scale of 1 to 10 of like level of engagement, like on 10 you're super engaged, like the most you're optimal, the best your brain can be, the most it can be firing, to a 0, which is like you're dead, right? Like I was between a 7.5 and an 8.5 the entire time. The entire time. Like I was always on. And I was like, that's kind of good. I'm like working hard, I'm engaged all day. And he's like, the doctor was like, it is absolutely impossible for you to get to a 10. Like, we work with fighter pilots, and if they have to be at a 10 for this hour, or they will die, right? But to be at a 10, they have to spend 4 times as much at a 2. And I was never getting below a 7.5, right? So the whole concept of I want to be optimal in my craft, like there is all the things that you do. You have to work really effing hard to be the best. But you also have to learn how to rest and to shut it all down. And it's not just like watching Netflix, scrolling your phone, because your brain's not relaxing when you do that. Like, what is life giving to you and relaxing? Have we thought about this? Like, what is it? Do you, on the top of your head, do you have something right now where it's like it's life-giving and relaxing? Do you have one thing? I would guess a lot of us don't, because we're just like on all the time. But which is, life demands a lot. But just know you can't get to a 10. It's impossible for you unless you spend time down here.
All right, explain, speaking of kind of like the mental toughness you have to have, explain the Misogi.
Misogi. So Misogi was a concept that was brought to me a bunch of years ago. Basically, the heart of it is like when you're young, like we tell our kids, like we want you to think life is like this big, like you dream it, you can do it, you can work for it, like it's exciting. Your creativity is like, pumping. But as we get older, we tend to go the other way, right? We lose a few times. We get burned. We tend to get a little more strategic. We got plan more. We got more responsibility. And instead of thinking the world goes like this, we tend to kind of go like inward, right? And so this guy's explaining this to me, and I'm like, I get it. Like, I feel it. I feel it in basketball. I feel it in life. Like, it's really easy for me in both ways to just get more narrow. And he's like, you don't like that, right? And I was like, no, I don't like this at all. He's like, okay, so this is what we're going to do. One time a year, you do something that you have absolutely no experience with. You set a goal that is really big. You cannot have better than a 50% chance of making it, right? The only rule is you cannot die. And we're going to find something that we're completely uncomfortable with, we've never done before. We're going to do it for an extraordinary long period of time, and we're going to face all of our fears, and we're going to find out what our edges really are, right? I'm like, cool, I'm in. So what are we doing? He's like, have you ever stand-up paddleboarded before? And I said, no. He's like, okay, we're going to stand-up paddleboard from the Channel Islands to Santa Barbara. So that's 30 miles across the open ocean. All you think about right now is that there's sharks in that water, right? That's like all you think about. Like, one, I don't know how to paddle. I have never done this before. I'm like super tall, really narrow, don't got great balance. Like, I'm just going to fall off the board, and there's sharks down there, right? So anyway, we end up doing this thing. We go to the Channel Islands. We turn around. I'm like, I'm really down on this. Like, it took us 3.5 hours by boat to get there. And I'm like, we're just going to paddle around for a little bit. We're going to keep on falling. And eventually we're going to come back, and it's going to be a waste of my Saturday. So we start going, and true enough, like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm falling down. Like, I'm in the water. Water's cold. It's still dark outside. I'm like, this is so stupid. Like, after a while, I can't stand. My two buddies are, like, way ahead of me. So I'm, like, on my knees, like, paddling on my knees. My Hodgkin slaughters are, like, this big. Then they start bleeding with my toes. So I'm like, there's blood. Sharks smell blood. Right? Like, I'm bleeding in the water trying to paddleboard across the ocean. Like, what are we doing? We get to about halfway there, right? And, like, finally something clicks in me. And it's like, okay, you're halfway, right? You want to take the boat in? Or you want to figure this thing out? I'm like, I'm going to figure this thing out. So when you're out there in the ocean and you're looking across, like in Santa Barbara, there's like the mountain range right there, and you can't see a house, you can't see anything. All there is the top of the tallest mountain, and like that's where I'm headed, right? So when you're young, you're taught to, you get a big goal, right? And then you break it down into smaller goals. Well, on the middle of the ocean, I can't there's no mile markers, and there's no trees, and there's nothing. Like, how do I gauge my progress? And it came to me after a few minutes. I was like, all I can control is my stroke. I am going to perfect this stroke. And so I got lost. I mean, lost in the process of standing on this board and like, it's just like I was talking about shooting. Like, where's my toes? If I angle my toes out just a little bit more, I have better balance. Cool. What's my distance? I went all the way up my body, right? Like where my knees are over my toes, how my hips are engaged, how much am I bent over? And I just like played with all these angles and found where I felt the best way. My hand by this time is complete, like all you can paddle on is the right side, because if you go on the left side, you go straight to LA, right? Because the current's taking you that way. So you're only paddling on this side. So my hand is like beat and bruised. And I found out if I turned it like a quarter of an inch this way, my hand stopped hurting. I was like, okay, that's where my hand needs to be. So that's where I'm in. So where am I putting my paddle in? Where am I pulling the paddle out? How am I pulling? What muscles am I targeting? What's my core? Like, I just got lost in making the perfect stroke, and I'd go 1 stroke, right? 2 stroke, 3 strokes, fall in, shit, all right, get back up, 1 stroke, 2 stroke, and just try to, how many perfect strokes can I get in a row? And when I tell you, like, when we got there to the end, like our kids and our wives were there, and like our wives like punch us and then they hug us, and it was like a beautiful moment, right? There was no like reward. There was no, like, we didn't get anything, right? But what I got that day, like I developed a gear and like a mindset that like I believe that I can go. I can endure. Like, I can look at something that feels so impossible to me, but know that there's something I can control, and I'm going to try to perfect it. And when we talk about mental toughness in sports, like, that's what it is, right? Like, it's not like everything's going great. Like, it's when things don't, like, what can I do? Where do I go? Like, that was, anyway, Misogi is one of the greatest exercises that I do every year. It's
What are some of the other ones you did, by the way?
The next year, we went back out to the Channel Islands, and we took a 70-pound rock, and we dropped it in the water, and you had a partner, and you had to go down and find it, and then you picked it up, and you ran as far as you could with 1 breath, and then you would drop it and go back up to the top, and then your partner would go down, and we ran a 5K underwater holding a 70-pound rock. Like, we just come out like, it's like none of it makes any sense. Like, it's all stupid, you know, but
You could have drowned. Definitely could have drowned.
There's probably sharks there too. Like, I don't know. But it's just the reminder that like I have this in me. And these, like, you think you have these certain boundaries and you have these fears, and it's like, are they real? Are they? How do you know? You got to find it. You got to test it. You have more than you think. Your body can do more than you think. We hold ourselves back. And yeah, anyway, that's Misogi for you.
So, last question for you. I've watched you kind of wrestle through this idea of having a voice, having influence, having a microphone, and what to do with it. And I'd love for you to share a little bit of kind of the story you found in that, and what your responsibility is with social injustices that you see, and yeah, how to use that voice for others.
Yeah, I think one of the seeds for this was a conversation I had with you. I don't know if you remember it or not, but I was watching teammates and people across the country really use their platforms, and they're taking some criticism for it, but I really feel like they were doing the right things in life. And I was like, I don't know if I've ever really leveraged myself. Like, I try to be a kind and good person, and you're right, like, there's so many opportunities in sports to love on the kids, and you do all those things, and it's all beautiful. Like, charity's beautiful, but like, have I ever really leveraged myself, like, for change in a way that is not just like, oh, great job, like have any of us done? Like what does that look like? Like, what does it look like for me? And so I think this is I think in life there is your work that you use to pay your bills and to take care of your family and to perfect a craft, right? I think it's a beautiful part of life is, taking a craft and really digging into it. But I also think there's life work. I think there's 2 different works that we should always be engaged in. And leveraging yourself for the greater good is, we all know, right? I think one of the interesting things that I'll take away from a basketball career is watching, I mean, I've either experienced or been next to people who have literally every single thing this world has to offer. Every single thing, and things that we can't even imagine, and don't even think about. It doesn't feel real. But while I've been able to gauge that, I've also been able to see people's joy and their real happiness in life. And I know that like a fully engaged, a fully leveraged life for the good, for the greater good, is so much more satisfying than anything we might earn from our craft. Like working really hard at a craft and working really hard on yourself and then leveraging that work for good is amazing. It is what life is all about. Not just my extra, but me. Me. Optimal. My optimal self. My optimal craft. My optimal work. Leverage for something beyond me. Like, that is life. That's this community in so many ways. That's why you're drawn here. That's why you're here. Right? Like, this is life. And I'm telling you, like, after basketball, me and my wife got to choose where we wanted to live for the first time. We chose here because there's people here doing this. And we want to be a part of it. And you living that out, you may only be focused on the good you think you're doing, but I'm telling you, building this community, it's going to grow. And what this community does ultimately in this city, and the model it is for another city, like, you don't know. We don't know. Optimizing ourselves in whatever way for the greater good is the good work in life. It is.
Yo, thank you for joining us, Kyle. Give it up for my friend, Kyle Korver.